Okay, so I'm going to be doing a tutorial on one-handing, which is probably my favorite trick ever because it allows you to do, well, it restricts what you can do a lot, but it allows you to do a couple things that I just think are really, really, really cool. So, obviously the first thing that you have to learn is the transition, because clearly you cannot do one-handing like this because your strings are on two different hands. So some people, it depends on how you grip your string. I grip my string like so. I hold it with it wrapped around my middle finger. Some people, I believe, grip it just straight like this, which would be easier to transition from. So if you grip it, if you just pinch it, then really all you have to do is go into something like a spiral. See, I don't hold it like this, so it doesn't really work. But go into something like a spiral and just grab it. Grab the other string with the back of your hand, and then pinch it with your pinky finger. The way I do it, with it wrapped around fingers like so, is I have to go into a spiral, and in the middle of the spiral, so right there with everything wrapped around my hands, I have to thread my ring finger. I think that's my ring finger. This one. Thread this through here. So underneath my middle finger on the other hand. Pull my middle finger on my other hand out, and then unwind from the spiral. So what it looks like, eventually, is that. That was not perfect by any means, because, it didn't come out in fully split time. It was like one of these things where it's not all the way done. But that happens a lot, and really, without copious amounts of practice, it's going to happen most of the time. There, see, that was a lot better. So that's going to take a lot of practice just to start with. There's other ways you can do it. I mean, you can thread it onto your thumb. You can hold it like this, so where your main hand finger or your main hand stick is actually on the back side of your hand, and the offhand stick is on your thumb going forward. So you can do that. Again, that's not how I do it. That's not how I'm going to be teaching it. But if that's how you feel comfortable, that works too. Also, you can do the same pinch thing where you hold it in the back of your hand. So now your main hand string will be in front, your offhand string will be in back, and you can do it like that. Again, I don't do that because pinching it is just not safe enough for me. I have to glow stick in the house. My parents don't like it when my glow sticks go flying, so pinching it, not so good for this house. Whereas with this, you've got it threaded on both hands, pinched with both fingers. That stick is not going anywhere. Again, you have the main hand string going forward, offhand string also going forward, but following the first one. So once you've got yourself into one hand, so once you've got both strings on this hand, I don't really care how you got it. I don't really care what grip you're doing. All the moves are basically the same. The first thing you're going to be learning is 2-beat. So just like it's the first thing you learn with regular glow sticking, 2-beat is the simplest thing that you can possibly do in one hand. I'm going to go through the basic motions of it. I'm going to assume most of you know how to do 2-beat, but on the off chance that one of you is really crazy and is trying to learn one hand before you learn two-hand, I guess. I'll show it anyway. One circle on this side, one circle on this side. Do it for both hands. The most important thing to remember about this is that at all times, one of your strings is following the other. So we're going to say this is your main hand string. As soon as this one goes onto one side, the other string follows. So that's exactly what's going to be going on in one hand. So I'm going to give you a close-up of my hand just so you can see what I'm doing. It looks like it's mostly a wrist motion. It is mostly a wrist motion. The wrist motion is by far the easier half of this trick. The more difficult thing to master is the finger motion. So if you can see what my fingers are doing, I'm kind of doing like I'm waving my fingers or something. Because with the way you're gripping this, and really the way you're gripping them all the time, your string is going to follow where your fingers go. So your string is kind of resting on your fingers, and if you move your fingers, it moves where the strings are going. So if you can see, I don't know if you can, I don't think my camera's good enough, but I'm going to try and slow it down. So I'm actually pushing the front string with my pointer finger and leading the back string with my pinky. So that's how you do 2-beat. It's fairly simple. It'll be difficult for a while. The hardest part is getting the planes right. You want it parallel to your body, so you want it in front and back wall planes. I practiced this for like a couple weeks before I got it this good, and I still can't really do it with my offhand. I can try. This will show you, this is what it looks like when you're learning. Kind of. This is after like a week or two of trying it out. Yeah. So the next thing you're going to be learning is spirals. So it's the same thing. You're going to be learning this just on one hand. So it's the same way you get in. It's the same transition. You're just going to be doing one of these. So the thing with spirals is when you're starting off, you're not going to be able to get very many of them in a row. You're not going to be able to continue them because you're going to run out of momentum and they're just going to kind of sit there. I'm going to give you a close-up of my hand. Essentially what I'm doing is spinning it and then closing my fingers as the string wraps around, and then as it unwraps, I'm opening my fingers to apply the starting force that will get the actual spiral going, and then spinning my hands to keep that motion going. So from open strings, spin, close your fingers, open your fingers, spin, close your fingers, but you're doing it all in one big motion. So again, what it looks like, it's the same thing as regular spiral, but look at my hand really more than the lights. The lights aren't really necessary, but they show you what it looks like. So close fingers, open hand, spin, spin, fingers. That's what it looks like. You are going to get a forearm workout doing spirals with one hand. It is a lot of force that you have to put into these. And here, I'm just going to keep showing you what it looks like as you learn, because my right hand is not nearly as good as my left hand. So this, see if they're going to like, the momentum doesn't keep going. it looks sloppy, and I drop my strings. But that's what it looks like as you learn. So don't be discouraged, because it's really hard. The final basic move for one-handing is wraps. So they're all in the same basic, they're all in split time, they're all the same basic circular motion, they're all really, really, really easy when you're using two hands, and they all get significantly harder when you're using one hand. So this is the basic wrap for two hands, again, for one hand. With two hands, it's really simple. It's this thing. This is what you're doing, except you're doing it with one hand. So, this one gets really tricky. It's not too complicated, but because you're doing it with one hand, it gets weird. The strings go in directions that they should not go, and it makes no sense. And your hand is not going to like you. Your hand is going to get really sore, and that happens. So just bear with it. It took me, I'm going to say it took me a good 2 or 3 months before I got all three of these moves down smoothly. And that was with fairly regular practice. So, close-up, again, I'm going to try to give you close-ups on everything. This is what it looks like from the outside. So, there are 3 parts to this move. There's your bicep, tricep. There's your upper arm, which is actually moving. It's not just standing still waiting for a string to wrap around it. You do actually have to add force. There's your forearm. So there's this part of it. And then there's your hand. And your hand it's always the most important part, because it has to guide the strings. It has to add extra force when you need it. Your hand is your friend. You like your hand. So if you look at the plane that is made, this plane. So there's the corner made by your upper arm and your lower arm, and there's the other side that is made by your forearm on this side. It's possible also to wrap on your upper arm on this side. It looks like this. It looks exactly the same. It's actually closer to parallel than this is, but it's a little harder. I like the forearm easier. I just like it better. It gets tangled in your clothes less. It's less of a pain. Just go with your forearm. So look at the plane that is made by my arms. They are always in the same plane. That is because the strings have to wrap at the same time. So I can't keep one arm here if I'm moving this arm up and down, because then the one that's wrapping on my forearm is going to wrap first. It's going to wrap earlier than this one, and then they will get out of sync. And you don't want them to get out of sync because it looks sloppy and it's bad. So you're going to be moving in a seesaw motion with your hands, and then, or with your arms. You're going to be moving in a seesaw motion with your arms. But your hand is, again, the most important part. So right now, all you've seen is the back of my hand, because that's what you see from the outside. I'm going to try to show you the inside. This may not work, but I'm going to try. This is what the inside of your hand looks like. Hold on, I'm going to turn around. That didn't really help much, but that's what the inside of your hand looks like. So my hand is doing this back and forth. I know it looks really simple. It's not. Because what you're doing is you're actually pushing the strings with your hand in ways that your hand muscles are not accustomed to pushing things. So when I'm doing this motion, you would assume that I'm pushing the lower string with my pinky and I'm pushing the upper string with my thumb. That's not actually how it works. I'm pushing the lower string with my pinky, yes. And I'm pushing it into my bicep with my pinky. Or in the alternate motion, I'm leading it out with my pinky, getting ready to wrap it on my forearm. With the upper side of my hand, I'm taking my pointer finger. My pointer finger is pushing it towards my bicep. So my pointer finger adds the momentum that I need to get it to my bicep. But then it's actually my thumb that pushes it back in the other direction towards my forearm. So with that in mind, watch again. So especially watch my thumb. I know it's hard to see past my forearm because my forearm is here. I'll take this string out. This is what the upper string looks like. So see, I'm pushing it with my thumb, flipping it with my thumb off my forearm, or off my bicep onto my forearm, and then pulling it back with my pointer finger off of here. So it's flipping back and forth between my thumb and my pointer finger. So flipping from here, pushing it up like this, to this side, pushing it up like this. With the other side, so I'm going to do it wrapped around here, you're going back and forth. It's really just a very simple moon wrap. Well, I mean, it's half of a moon wrap. The other half is a sun wrap, so it makes it a spiral wrap, but that's not really important right now. So just leading it back and forth with your pinky. It's fairly simple, but the problem is that the underside really is the side that loses momentum the most. So as you're doing it, you need to be very careful to add momentum to the lower side, because otherwise it's going to end up doing, you're going to do one of these, and it's just going to end up sitting there. And I know it looks kind of cool, but it's always better to have it, well, it's not always better to have it moving, but in this case, what you're trying to do is this, which obviously is not this. Now the way that you add momentum, in the case of the lower side, with the upper side you're really pushing it with your hand. With the lower side, that's why your plane is moving back and forth. You're actually pushing it with your arms, because you can't, your pinky, I mean, I know some of you may have really strong pinkies. Your pinky's not strong enough to add the force that you need. Thus, the seesaw motion. So notice each time that the lower side wraps, that arm is up higher. When you push it off, you switch the seesaw. So you go from here with the lower side on my forearm, the upper side on my bicep, push it down. On the other side, you go from here with the upper side on my forearm, the lower side on my bicep, push it down with the bicep. So, close up, you can see the lower side is always the side being pushed. At the same time, the upper side is also being pushed. So notice from the lower side, or as you're focusing on this one being pushed down from here, this side is actually being pushed up by your forearm. And on the other side, as you're focusing on this side being pushed down by the forearm, this side is actually being pushed up by your bicep. That's not quite as important because it's more natural, but it is important to keep that in mind. So, in conclusion, the four most basic parts of one-handing: the transition in, which is, in my case, threading my ring finger through the loop that is on my offhand. The two-beat, basic two-beat, which has your kind of fancy hand motion. There is your wraps, very important. Keep the plane of your arms correct. Make sure that you're adding momentum to the lower side. Make sure that you're pushing on the top with your fingers. And there are these spirals. Don't get frustrated with the spirals. It just comes naturally with practice. Your hand will get stronger. Your fingers will figure out the rhythm with which they need to open and close and twist and turn and all the fancy stuff. Here's a close-up of the hand motion again. And yeah, those are the four basic parts of one-handing. Alright, so this is the continuation of my basic one-handing tutorial video. I realized that in the original, I did not teach you how to get out of one-handing. Getting out of one-handing is a lot harder than getting into it. So, if you're going to be filming any videos that include one-handing anytime in the near future, I would recommend adding it at the end so that you don't have to get out of it. I personally hate getting out of one-handing, but it is very important to learn. So I'm going to teach you two different ways, one of them a little bit more elegant than the other. And the first way that I have to get out of one-handing, which I don't use very often, but it is reasonable to remember it, and if you get good at it, it works, is you kind of stick your hand inside of a two-beat, follow it around, keep the two-beat going, and you just kind of thread your finger through. Or, well, first of all, you have to loosen your grip on it. So my original grip has it all the way at the base of my finger, so I loosen it until it's on the middle knuckle. But keep on doing your two-beat. And I just kind of reach in and grab it and get out like that. The other way I get out, that was a failed, if you didn't notice, that was a failed transition in. The other way to get out of it is from spirals. So it's essentially the same way you got in, except it's not quite as smooth because you have to grab it instead of threading your hand in. So you go from a spiral. Okay, so you go from two-beat. You go into a spiral. So you just got into a spiral. You just finished the spiral. As they come out, there will be a point at which they are parallel. I'm putting my arms here just to show you what they look like. Your arms aren't actually here, obviously, because you're doing a spiral. There will be a point before you go and you wrap back where they're parallel. At that point, you're going to reach your hand in and grab the string. If possible, get any one of your fingers. If you can get any one of your fingers in the loop, it will make it tremendously easier for you to transition into regular two-handing. So again, you go from the spiral, reach in, and grab the string that was on your ring finger. Notice, as soon as you grab it, I usually grab it in a pinch like this. You won't be able to do anything very interesting until you get back to the grip that you're used to. In my case, the grip that I'm used to includes a finger through the loop, which is kind of hard to get, but usually I just kind of fiddle around until I get a finger through. In this case, I got my pointer finger through. Fiddle around until you can get any finger through, and that creates the opening that you need to get the finger that you need, like so. So I just kind of spun it around a couple times and did one of these. So that is the transition that I usually use to get out. So I'll go, again, just to show you, go from a spiral, reach in, grab it, eventually get my fingers through the loop. If I was actually performing anything, I would probably get out of that transition a lot faster than I just did. In this case, I got my thumb in, so I pinched it again, but I managed to get my thumb in, which makes it a lot easier to reach in and get your middle finger through. So that's a transition out. Other transitions that, you know, cool glow stickers do, so like one that I saw Siphon Killer do on one of his videos is he grabbed it from his, he grabbed it in his armpit and then let go and did one of these. But he did it like a lot faster than I just did. So he did like, whoa. So he did like one of those. That's cool too. I don't like that because it, you know, it just kind of sits there while you're doing the transition. But, I mean, Siphon Killer is like a bajillion times better than I am, so obviously he likes it, so don't discount it. So transitions out, obviously, very, very important. Kind of difficult to get it to go smoothly, but it's going to be something you're going to have to learn if you want to do one-handing. The next thing I'm going to teach you is, what is the next thing I'm going to teach you? I'll teach you butterfly. Butterfly is cool. The thing about butterfly is I'm not very good at getting out of it. So I can get into it just fine. So I'm going to show you how to get into it. So you go from 2-beat, or you go from spirals, or you go from wraps. And as soon as you get to a point where they're about to go back off, so either you're doing spirals and they're parallel, or you're doing 2-beat and they're here and they're parallel, or you're doing wraps, obviously, and they're parallel, you're going to get ready to hit the one that is going up. So you've got the one on the bottom that's swinging down, and you've got the one on the top, that's swinging up. You're going to get ready to hit the one that's swinging up, because the one on the bottom is going to come around, and as soon as it gets up here, this one is going to be here, and you're going to hit it, and then they're both going to go up, and it's going to be awesome. So what it looks like is this. So from a wrap, you're going to be, keep in mind the bottom one is going to have to go around your bicep instead of hitting it, so you're going to go around like this. So you may want to slow this down if possible. I'm not very good with my computer, so I don't know how to do it, so do it on your own computer. But from a wrap, that's what it looks like. From a spiral, I did that wrong, as you can clearly see. From a spiral, hold on, I got this. There you go. From a spiral, that's what it looks like. And then from, I don't like to do it from 2-beat, so I'm not going to show you, but it's fairly self-explanatory. It's the same thing. It's just a little harder, and I don't think it looks as cool, so I don't do it really ever. But that's butterfly. I'm going to show you the hand motion now. I can't keep it going for very long because eventually they hit each other. But this is what the hand motion looks like. So you're kind of like that weird, sexy cat thing. You're like reaching your hand out and like waving at somebody. Like this. Really slow, awkward motion when you're doing it without strings, but that's what it looks like. So again, close up with the strings. That's what you're doing. You can do that with wraps. So you can do it like so. Again, I don't like it very much because it's a lot harder to keep them parallel but in slightly different planes than it is with two-handing. Two-handing, it's really easy to keep them in separate planes. When you're doing it with one hand, eventually they're going to hit each other, and I don't like it. So rather than doing this, I usually do sun and moon wraps, which are also really hard, but they're less unpredictable. They're much less unpredictable. I like them a lot better. And that is really the only way I know how to get out of butterfly. There are obviously ways where you kind of stick your hand in the middle and knock one of them so they're going in the other direction. I could figure out how to do it if I did it in slow motion, if I really wanted to. I don't really want to because I don't do it very often. So really, I just go into sun and moon wraps. I'm sorry, I really, it's late and I don't like butterfly in one hand. But I'm going to show you anyway because I'm cool like that. Sun and moon wraps. I just learned these recently, so they're kind of sloppy, but bear with me. Again, third time's the charm. Sun and moon wraps. That's what they look like. I'm not going to try to do them full speed again because I'm just going to mess up and it makes me look bad. But essentially what you're doing, just like regular sun, I mean, you can do moon wraps. I'm just going to show you how to do sun wraps because that's the only one I do. But moon wraps are the same thing, just upside down. So if you want to do moon wraps, feel free. I'm just not going to show you how to do it. Sun wraps. You go from this. So, this setup. You've got the top one on one bicep. You've got the bottom one on the other bicep. You're going to push them up. You have to push them up with your biceps because you're really not adding any force from your fingers because it's hard. So you're going to be doing a lot of these. You have to make it bounce with your biceps. So you go from this. Notice my hand is facing me. My hand, the palm of my hand is facing me. You go up and across, and voila, the palm of my hand is now facing you. So the palm of my hand is facing out. The bottom one is on this bicep. The top one is on this bicep. So again, push them up, palm of my hand facing me, push them up, palm of my hand facing you. And it's very important that you switch each time because essentially what that means is the top one. Pretend I'm doing this. The top one is staying on the inside. It's staying towards me. The bottom one is staying on the outside. It's staying away from me. What that means is they're not going to hit each other because they're in slightly different planes, which is why I don't like butterfly, but why I like sun and moon wraps a lot more, because you can control the plane by switching your hand back and forth. And then to get out of it, you just kind of hit one of them and don't hit the other. And it goes back into split time. And you can do 2-beat, or you can do wraps, or you can do spirals, and you can do whatever you want. So that's sunwraps. I messed up. I'm not very good at them, but I showed you how to do it. So go learn. Be better than me. Now we're going to get into the part of one-handing that I really like. It looks about the same. It doesn't look any cooler, but I figured out how to do it myself, which makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So I'm going to show you right now. This is 2-beat. I just showed you how to do this. 2-beat is cool. But with 2 hands, nobody does 2-beat. Why does nobody do 2-beat? Nobody does 2-beat because they can do 3-beat. And 3-beat looks cooler. By slightly. We like 3-beat better. 3-beat lets you transition into more moves, cooler moves. You can do, with 2 hands, you can do fountain with 3-beat. You can't really do it with 2-beat. I've never tried, but I imagine it would be kind of silly. 3-beat is just all around better than 2-beat. Why does nobody do 3-beat with 1 hand? I'm sure people do, but it's a pain to do because it is very difficult. But it's awesome, so I'm going to show you anyway. 2-beat, observe, cool. Not quite as cool as it could be. 3-beat, much cooler. My arm looks kind of silly. It looks like I'm doing some kind of weird dance. But 3-beat. The hand motion is significantly more difficult, but it's awesome. So I'm showing you. I've said that like 3 times, but I don't care because it's true. The hand motion. The all-important hand motion. Keep in mind with 2-beat, your pointer finger, so the top side of your hand was always leading. So with 2-beat, you led down with your pointer finger, and you led across with your pointer finger. So your hand was always going in this kind of figure 8 motion. With 3-beat, you lead down in front of you with your pointer finger, with your front hand, with your front string, which in my case is the main hand string. So it's the one that is attached to my middle finger. You lead down with that. I'm sorry, I lied to you. No, you lead across with that. So from the front of you, you lead to the back. You have just now led to the back. So this is my front string. Just like 3-beat, you go across. So in 2-beat, you would be about to be coming back now. But you do one more half loop. So you're now leading. I'm going to do this Spider-Man style. Waha. Pew pew. You lead with your pinky now to the front of you. So where you went back with your pointer finger, with your front string, you now lead forward with your pinky, with your back string. And that gives you this crazy hand motion. It turns into a hand and arm motion because you have to make sure that the strings don't hit you. And that's what your arms are for, moving your hand so that it doesn't get in your way. Again, pointer finger leads from front to back. You flip your hand, and pinky finger leads from back to front. This is what it looks like from far away. Observe the arm keeping the glow sticks from hitting my body. It's very important. I don't like it when glow sticks hit my body. It gives me little red marks, and it hurts. Close-up of my hand motion. This is what it looks like. Get the arm in. Your elbow moves back and forth too. This gets really, really tiring. in your shoulder, and in your forearm. Because your forearm is now, it's always pushing the strings. Your forearm is always pushing the strings. Your forearm is going to get really tired. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Your forearm gets really tired doing one-handing. In this case, your shoulder is also getting tired too because you're leading from one side to the other with your shoulder. Three beat takes a long time. It may have taken longer for me because I had to figure it out because I really wanted to learn the thing I'm going to show you next. But three beat takes a long time. It took me, I'm going to say probably a month and a half, maybe a month, of basically just trying over and over and over again to get three beat. And once I hit myself too many times, I went on and I tried something else. But every day, more or less, maybe like every other day, I tried to do three beat on one hand again. It takes a long time. It kind of sucks while you're learning it. But once you learn it, you get to do cool things. Like what I'm about to show you. This is the reason I learned three beat on one hand. Yes, that was a one-handed fountain. The only person I have ever seen ever do that is Siphon Killer. I think. I saw it in one of his videos. I want to say it was his 4-year glow sticking video. It was awesome. It kind of inspired me to do one-handing in the first place. So I've been, again, as long as three beat takes you to get, fountain takes you even longer. I love fountains with two hands. I love fountains with one hand. Fountain is a pain in the butt to get. But it's awesome. And that's why I learned it. As always, there are 3 parts to a fountain. There's the, well, there's 2 parts to a fountain. There's 3 parts to an extended fountain. I do an extended fountain because I think they're awesome. You can do a regular fountain too. I just don't think it's as cool. Some people disagree with me. It's not a big deal. On 2 hands. This is what a fountain looks like. This is what an extended fountain looks like. The only difference between a fountain and an extended fountain is on an extended fountain, you add an extra beat of windmill. Why do you add an extra beat of windmill? Because it's cool. It doesn't really flow with the idea of a fountain, but it's awesome, and that's why we do it. Again, this is what you're trying to learn how to do, except you're doing it on one hand. And you're doing it on one hand. Like so. The first thing, so after you learn 3-beat, I'm going to assume you have now learned 3-beat. From now on, 3-beat is within your grasp. I mean, it's always within your grasp, but from now on you have already in your grasp it. Now, you have to learn reverse 3-beat. Reverse 3-beat is also really hard, and my computer is dying, so I'm going to go plug it in, and there will be a slight pause in the video. Okay, I'm back, and my computer is now plugged in, which is always a good thing. What was I talking about? Reverse 3-beat. Reverse 3-beat sucks. I will never, ever need to use it other than for fountain, but it's worth it. I'm going to show you on 2 hands again. Most of you probably already know how to do a reverse 3-beat on 2 hands. I'm going to show you anyway. This is 3-beat. Again, you lead with one hand, you lead with the other hand, lead with one hand, lead with the other hand. You always change it up. You do a full circle on each side, full circle on each side. Fun stuff. Reverse 3-beat. Significantly harder. Still not hugely difficult. Doesn't take too long to master, but it is still more difficult because you're now leading with your underhand instead of with your overhand. Reverse 3-beat. This is what it looks like. Learn it if you haven't learned it already, because it's very important. Reverse 3-beat on one hand. This is reverse 2-beat. You're going to want to learn reverse 2-beat before you learn reverse 3-beat, because unlike with 2 hands, once you learn 3-beat, it's kind of hard to go back to do 2-beat. You have to kind of actively teach yourself again, although there's really no point because very few people do 2-beat on a regular basis. With one hand, that's not the case. With one hand, you can always go back to 2-beat. It's really, really easy. My reverse 2-beat is kind of sloppy because all I ever use it for is fountain. But reverse 3-beat is kind of hard to start because it's a pain. So I'm just going to mess around until I get it, and then I'll tell you once I've got it. Reverse 3-beat. This is what it looks like. Give you a close-up real quick while I've got it. It is a massive pain to do reverse 3-beat. Hand, as always. Where normally you would be leading this way right now, you're now leading this way right now. So this finger is pew pew, Spider-Man. This finger is still going under, or it's still leading, but it's leading in the opposite direction now. So this finger leads this way. You get to this side. If you were doing 2-beat, you would then come around this way and lead back up with your front string. So you would do one of these. Instead, you're going to lead under with your front string. You're going to flip your hand and lead back over with your bottom string. Something that I experienced when I was trying to learn how to do this, which was really, really weird, was my hand would automatically, or my strings would automatically revert to 4-beat. I'm going to show you what that looks like. If I can still do it. I hope I can still do it. Again, you're never going to use it. Probably. I mean, you might. You never know. But really, the only reason to show it to you is to show you that that's not what your 3-beat is supposed to look like. So this, if I can still do it, which it looks like I can't, but I'm going to keep trying for another minute or two. I'll just keep you waiting here. Essentially what it does when you're trying to do is it'll do one of these where you're trying, ideally you get to this point and you lead back over with your bottom string, but instead, because I think this is all theory. I have no idea if this is why it does it, but this is why I think it does it. Because your hand closes like this, your pinky instead of letting it go to this side, your pinky wants to close and so it pulls it back onto this side, and it kind of runs along your forearm. Well, this one leads over, and then it'll get kind of stuck in this nook here, and it'll flip back over for when you go back. So, if you watch it very closely, you might be able to see it. That's kind of what it does. It's kind of hard to continue because of the friction on your forearm. It's kind of a pointless move. Don't learn how to do it if you've already got reverse 3-beat. It's 4-beat bad. We don't like 4-beat. It's not even like a real thing on 2 hands because it's just 5-beat on one hand or on one side, 5-beat on one side, 3-beat on the other. It's not even a real move for 2 hands, but for 1 hand, I guess it is because you're only doing it on 1 hand. So that makes it special, I guess. I don't know. Don't do 4-beat. We don't like 4-beat. We like 3-beat because 3-beat you can do fountains on. And fountains are cool. We like fountains. And then the last component is the windmill. I don't like doing windmill on its own with 1 hand because if I do windmill for more than just the 1 beat that it takes to do fountain, I hit myself. But I like you all because presumably most of you are CT wires, so I will sacrifice my head for you. I have poofy hair right now, so hopefully it won't hurt too much. So, kneeling, so that you can see, we have windmill. I'm going to cover my head so I look like a sissy and I look really funny, but this is what windmill is. I'm doing 2-beat. I'm about 95% sure that in a fountain, you're actually not doing a full 3-beat over your head. You're actually only doing a 2-beat. Because, I don't know why, but I think that's what happens. I haven't actually analyzed it in slow motion, but I don't think you do a full 3-beat over your head. Because it just doesn't take long enough. Excuse me. I don't know if you could hear that. I just farted. So, you can't smell it, but excuse me. Now you have to put the 3 together. So you've got 3-beat forward on one side, 3-beat reverse on the other, windmill, 2-beat windmill on top. There are several ways you can do it. Some people go from 3-beat forward into windmill. So they go from 3-beat forward into 2-beat windmill into 3-beat reverse into 3-beat forward. I do it in the other direction. I do 3-beat forward into 3-beat reverse into 2-beat windmill into 3-beat forward. Obviously you could do it in the mirror flipped orientation. You could do 3-beat forward, 3-beat reverse, 2-beat windmill, 3-beat forward, 3-beat reverse, 2-beat windmill, and just go in this direction instead of in this direction. The reason I don't do that is entirely arbitrary. It's because this is my strong side. I'm a lefty. I like my left side. 3-beat reverse is a lot harder than 3-beat forward. So I do 3-beat reverse on my left side. Part of the difficulty here is you have to do 3-beat forward, or I suppose 3-beat reverse if you want. I'm a lefty. I'm going to use my lefty directions. Probably most of you are righties. Just flip the directions that I say. This is a massive video. I just made a mistake in the last section of it, so I'm starting a portion over. What I'm going to do is, if you're still watching this, you've been watching this for like 50 minutes, or you started in the middle, in which case, good for you because you're cool and efficient. But if you've been watching this for 50 minutes, then you don't care that I've made all these mistakes, and you're awesome, and I love you, and here's a hug. because you've been watching this for 50 minutes and you clearly have no friends. I'm going to go through this crazy Pew Pew Spider-Man code thing for the entirety of one full fountain around. Hopefully I'll get it perfectly this time. Here goes. Starting from 2 beat. I start on my cross side hand. Remember, I'm a lefty, so you can reverse all the directions if you're a righty. 2 beat on the off side. Like so. Pointer finger leads all the way through for 2 beat. You come in front of you. You transition into 3 beat. You flip your hand. Pinky finger leads to the back. Unflip your hand. Pointer finger leads into the front. Flip your hand again. Your pinky finger is still everything makes a full circle in front of you. You flip your hand and your pointer finger leads into the reverse 3 beat. Pointer finger leads. You unflip your hand and your pinky finger leads into the front. You then flip your hand and your pinky finger, so your pinky finger leads into the front. You flip your hand. Everything makes a full circle again. Pinky finger leads to the back of your head. You flip your hand. Pointer finger leads in front, but by now you're going back into your 3 beat. Pointer finger leads down. Pinky finger across. Pinky finger back. Pinky finger across. Pointer finger back. Flip, pointer finger across, pinky finger back. Flip, pinky finger over. Flip, pointer finger down. I probably switched pointer and pinky finger somewhere in that section because they sound way too similar and I am tired. Hopefully I got it correct. If something doesn't make sense, flip the words pointy and pinker. I'm really tired. Pinky and pointer, flip the words if it doesn't make sense, and it'll probably make sense. I'm going to show you one more fountain, and then I'm going to show you my last trick, the last of my secrets, and then I'm going to go to bed because I like sleep a lot. So fountain. Ta-da! So my father, the holy and wise rechargeable battery dispenser, is probably asleep. And 3 of my 5 flow toys are either broken or dead. And I don't know which. Some of them have the LEDs like rattling around in the cases, in which case they're probably broken. But I haven't gone through and checked for sure for all of them. I'm sorry this is so long. I'm really tired. I may just do this over again. I said earlier that one-handing is my favorite trick, or my favorite kind of glow sticking ever, because of all the super cool things you can do with it. So far, everything I've shown you is very impressive. Or, wow, that sounded really arrogant. I think it's impressive. I think it's cool. You don't have to think it's impressive. If you're watching this video, you probably think it's cool. But the only thing it's good for, really, is for attempting to impress people. Because everything that you can do on 2 hands, you can do on... I'm so tired. Everything that you can do on one hand, you can do on two hands. Except for the trick I'm about to show you. It's like... So there's two hands. You do all these complicated things that you can't do with other stuff. There's one hand. You do all these semi-complicated things that you can do with two hands. Then there's the kind of glow sticking I'm about to show you. You do all these complicated things that you can't do on two hands. And that is what makes it special. Actually, you can do it on two hands because you have to use two hands. Because this is a tutorial on three-stringing. That's right, this massive one-handing tutorial video has now morphed into three-stringing. If you don't want to learn three-stringing, close this now. But you do want to learn three-stringing because three-stringing is awesome. So like I said, batteries are not available. So I'm going to do this without it glowing. Luckily the lights are on, so you can probably still see it. This is what three-stringing looks like. Wow, you really cannot see this. Three-stringing. I will post a link to a three-stringing video in the description of this video so that you can see what it actually looks like with lights. I'm just going to teach you how to do it. I'm 95% sure I'm going to give you the link to Melvin Arc 12's three-stringing video because he is really cool and awesome. I don't actually know him as a person, but I'm assuming he's really cool and awesome because all of his glow sticking videos are really cool and awesome. So that's the link I'm going to send you. Preferably you should watch that before watching the rest of this because this will all make a lot more sense. Obviously, you're going to want your dominant hand doing the two, or doing the one-handing, and your weak hand doing the third string. Again, this is very restrictive. Your hands cannot do the same things that you can do with two hands, or with two strings. You can't do most double stalls, so you can't do these. These are off limits, probably. If you figure out how to do those, tell me, because I'm very interested, because I don't know how to do them. It's very restrictive in the things you can do. Four-stringing is even more restrictive. Siphon Killer did that. I'm trying to learn. It's kind of crazy. Don't expect a video on that anytime soon. But three-stringing is cool too, because it's new and exciting, and you're using three strings, and everyone's like, oh my god, what is going on? Because it's that awesome and trippy. I'm realizing now there's not a huge amount for me to teach you, because it's fairly self-explanatory. You do stuff with one hand, and then you do stuff with the other. But I'll go through some basic moves, I guess, just to help out. So obviously you're doing 2-beat most of the time on this hand, and doing kind of wraps, cool wraps. I just did one of these. Nice little duo shotgun wrap into a bicep wrap. Those are cool. Do some shin wraps. Essentially just get used to doing stuff with this hand while your dominant hand is doing 2-beat, or while your dominant hand is doing spirals. Really, the spirals are more difficult because you have to keep the momentum going even though you're concentrating on the other hand. See there, I just lost my momentum because I was concentrating on talking to you. All of you beautiful, beautiful people. Really, just get used to doing stuff. Very complicated stuff. Not very complicated stuff. Really just minorly complicated stuff. But you have to do it with this hand, with your off hand, while your dominant hand is doing even more complicated one-handing things, like 2-beat, which is not that complicated, but is very difficult because it's on one hand. From there, you can wrap on the hand that you're using, on your dominant hand. That makes things more difficult. And then the most difficult, well, not the most difficult, but the most difficult basic part of 3-stringing, there, see, I just messed up. The most difficult basic part of 3-stringing is the wraps. Wrapping on your offhand while doing other wrappy things with it. Because you can't, like, if you go back probably half an hour ago, maybe more, you will remember I was telling you to always keep your arms in the same plane because the bottom hand loses momentum. With 3-stringing, you're not going to be able to keep them in the same plane very well. Which means that this shoulder, your dominant shoulder, is going to get really tired because you're adding most of the force on the downbeat, on the push down with your bicep, which is really not with your bicep because it's with your shoulder. So your shoulder gets tired. That's 3-stringing. Now those of you who watched the Melvin Arc 12 link that I sent you will be wondering, Colin, or Dickiopolis, because that is my YouTube username. But I'm posting this on CTYSawRave, so you don't know that that's my username, but now you do. You will be wondering, CTYSawRave. But you're all CTYers, so you know that my name is Colin. So going back full circle, as you can tell, again, I'm exhausted because I just finished work today. Congratulations for me. I finished work. We got paychecks and everything. Got lots of tips. It was fun. That's my life. Welcome to my life. My life is cool. I like my life. Right. You will be wondering, Colin, how do I do that awesome epic move that Melvin Arc 12 did in the middle of his 3-stringing video? What is that awesome epic move, you say? Most of you already know what it is, because you watched it, and you noticed what I think, and what hopefully most of you will think is the coolest thing that he did. The coolest thing that he did is he did a 3-stringing orbital. I don't have it perfect yet. I'm trying. It looks something like this. Again, 3rd time's the charm. Or, in this case, 4th time. Like I said, I don't quite have it perfect yet. This is very difficult. Bear with me. There we go. That was mostly it. I'm going to try one more time, just in case I can get it. Or 2 more times, because I am persistent and stubborn. There we go. That was what it looks like. If you can see my glow sticks at all, which you might not be able to, but I'm hoping that you can. That is what it looks like. 3-stringing orbital is arguably the coolest thing that I know how to do. I'm going to take you through it step by step. Don't try it unless you know how to do orbitals. Don't try it unless you are fairly good at one-handing already. There are other ways to do this. I think Melvin Arc 12 did it in a slightly different way. I saw Melvin Mark 12 do it, and I decided I wanted to learn, but I was too lazy to watch his YouTube video over and over and over again to figure out what he did, so I just figured out how to do it my way. So what my way is 2 beat on one side. The offhand is just kind of spinning in a circle, doing fancy wraps. You do these fancy wraps until it is spinning this way. You want it spinning in a, what is that? Let's look at the clock. That is a clockwise direction. It probably looks counterclockwise to you, but it is a clockwise direction from my perspective. So from your perspective, you want it in a clockwise direction. I'm realizing most of you are righties. If you're righties, flip it, because you will be having the 2 strings on this side and the 1 string on this side, and the 1 string will be going in a counterclockwise direction. So flip all my directions. 2 beat, clockwise, fancy wraps. You do the fancy wraps until it is clockwise. You can even do the fancy wraps into this part. This is the middle part of your orbital. You go into a spiral. You're still doing fancy wraps, possibly. But eventually it goes into clockwise. From your spirals, you want your spirals to be coming out also clockwise. There are 2 halves to the spiral. There's the half where it is going clockwise, and there's the half where it is going counterclockwise. You want them coming out. You want to have just finished the counterclockwise part and be coming out clockwise so that you can be doing split time like you would for a regular orbital. First of all, some of you may do orbitals differently from me. Some of you may even do link catch orbitals. I don't like link catch orbitals, but if you like link catch orbitals, you go ahead and keep doing them. I'm going to show you how I do regular orbitals, and I realize I may be encroaching on other tutorials territory here, but I feel like you really need to know orbitals before you try 3-stringing orbitals. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Split time. Split time. They cross. I'm not doing a link catch orbital, but I'm catching them anyway to show you that they cross. See, they cross. Everything is in the same plane. As soon as they cross, I turn, or I turn my hands. In most cases, I just turn my hands. Cross, turn, and they spin. Your hands are now perpendicular to the plane that they were originally in, which is the plane that they're spinning in. And then you pull out. You pull out and do other cool things. Moving back to 3-stringing. Your hands are going clockwise, or they're going counterclockwise if you are a righty, or if you want to do weird backwards reverse orbitals, which may be completely normal forwards orbitals for some people who learned it weirdly and backwardsly, which really just means the opposite way that I do it, because anyone not me is weird and backwards. Right. That is totally the way the world works. So you've got them going clockwise. As soon as you reach the point where they are parallel like this, so you just came out of a spiral. You're about to start going back into a spiral, but you're not going to back into a spiral because you're going to do an orbital. So this is the maximum part, the maximum length of the strings for a spiral. They're about to go back and start wrapping again. This one is spinning here. What you're going to do is you're going to reach in, or not really in, you're going to reach into the plane, or across, you're going to reach across the plane that these are in. You're going to snag that string and pull it out. The difference being With two hands, you go from this to this. You move both hands from parallel to perpendicular. With three stringing, you can't do that because you have this pesky little bugger to keep track of. Throughout the orbital, this will be spinning in a circle directed by your pinky. Look at my fancy little pinky motions. Isn't my pinky cute? I like my pinky. My pinky is useful. Some people don't like their pinkies because they think it's a useless finger. I like my pinky. You're spinning it in a circle while this orbital is going on. Woo, fancy orbital with this hand, fancy orbital. But this one is still spinning, which means you can't do this. Because if you did this, then this one, oh no, it just got tangled on my string. Now I'm not doing an orbital because it's in the way. Which means that this hand needs to stay in front of you at all times. Which means that you're doing the entirety of the pulling with this hand. So you actually go from here and you make a quarter circle and you pull it across. I'm going to try some again now that I've explained to you how to do it. Hopefully I've explained properly so that you understand now what I am doing. This is a really long video, and I swear to you this is the last thing I'm going to teach you. Oh yeah, and then coming out, normally when you get out of an orbital, you go in, you go out, and you kind of pull like this diagonally, or really just you pull up with one hand and down with the other, so that when they come out of their tangle, they untangle. You can't really do that in three stringing because again, this pesky little guy spinning here would get all mad at me. Which means that I just kind of have to, I try to pull up with my offhand. There's probably a way to untangle them with reasonable grace. I have not yet mastered it. So what I do is I just kind of pull apart until it works. And as soon as it works, I go back into a spiral. So this is what I do. It will be an imperfect spiral. As you can see, they're both on top. Most of them are not wrapped around my pointer finger. It is an imperfect spiral. But the thing about an imperfect spiral is it is very easy to come out of an imperfect spiral and go into two-beat. And that is exactly what I do. So that is the full range of my three-stringing orbitals. You go from fancy wraps on your offhand and two-beat on your dominant hand, fancy wraps, fancy wraps, fancy wraps, spiral, wait until they're both going clockwise, reach in, grab it, hopefully don't mess up, reach in, grab it. I messed up and I'm not going to try again because I need to go to bed. But reach in, grab it, fancy orbital. These are doing a fancy orbital. This is still spinning while the fancy orbital is going on. They stop, they get untangled, you go into an probably imperfect spiral, but then you come out and you go into two-beat, and it's all better again. That, my friends, is the end of the three-stringing portion of this video, and it is the end of my total one-handing video. I love you all. Possibly just because it's late. It's not really that late. It's like 10:30, but I'm tired because I go to bed at like 8 because I'm like a little baby that way. Good night.